Good afternoon and welcome to Have a Chat. I'm Audrey Lynch, your host, with my beautiful co-stars today, Veronique Arseneault and Judy Losier. And we are recording from home today. Hello, ladies.
Hello. I have these big earphones on, but other than that, I look just lovely.
Hello,
Hi,
Vero.
everybody. Missing you guys for sure. It's weird to be home all the time, given how social we all are. But it's also good to be safe at home, as we say right now, and looking forward to a time when we can all be back together.
It's true.
Yeah, we have to be thankful that we're able to do the show like this, at least.
Yes. I'm such an extrovert that this is my penance.
No, exactly.
I love the headphones.
We have a
Judy.
great show lined up.
I love that Judy can make the headphones look sexy.
Yes.
Real sexy.
They're going to be the in thing.
Taking sexy back,
definitely.
for sure.
Yeah. As I was saying, we have a great show lined up for our viewers today. We have a great guest who's going to talk to us about some financial planning or coaching, if you want to say. But we're going to start off our show like we usually do. And we want to start off with a positive quote of the day. And I believe, Judy, you're up this time.
I do have it. And it is a serious one, actually. It's positive, but I want to make it something that everybody could relate to and should be following as well on this quote. So it is this: wearing a face mask is better than wearing a ventilator mask. Staying in your room is much better than staying in ICU. Washing your hands is better than washing away your life. And praying right now is much better than complaining. So bottom line is, stay safe. Stay home as much as you can.
Thank you, Judy. That's wonderful. That's great advice for everyone across the globe right here and right now. We're going to talk a little bit with our quick chat portion. How are you girls doing? We are Captain's Log? Where are we at, Vero?
Captain's Log day 32, I think it is right now. And it's funny, I get comments on that all the time. So for those of you that don't know, for whatever reason, the first day that we ended up being safe at home, and I work from home, so I'm very lucky. But that first day that we ended up being safe at home, I started my Captain's Log on social media. And so I talk about whatever strikes me that particular day. And sometimes it's, the dog or something I've discovered about myself, like the fact that since I've been safe at home, that I use every single dish, knife and fork every day. And I'm not sure why that happens, but I'm trying not to do that anymore, but it just seems to be that thing that I do. So anyway, so funny enough though, and sometimes I'm funny and it's funny. It's also funny that people have discovered that I'm funny. I always thought I was funny, but for some reason people don't. But anyway, sometimes it's funny, and I'm talking about, when the snow started to melt and being on poop patrol because of my dogs, of course. And then some days, it's just how I'm, it's awful. But other days it's just, like one day last week, and I meant it entirely that day, I was just drained. There was nothing wrong really, but I just felt so drained, and I had, I didn't have much oomph in me, and I didn't have much funny in me that day, and nothing had happened, nothing had changed, but I was drained that day. So but I've gotten a lot of comments on it. I've gotten people message me and say, keep it up, because, I find it entertaining to read. And for me, it's
We're enjoying it.
Thank you. For me, it's just my way of staying sane, to be honest. And also having that thing to look back on, a year from now, when this seems like a really distant memory, and I'm starting to forget how bad it was, and
the Facebook memories start popping up.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's not, bad, relatively speaking. I mean, I'm lucky. I'm safe at home, and I've got my family here with me, and, I've got my fur babies, and I've got food in the fridge, and I've got a job. And so, for me, it's more a mental toughness that I'm experiencing than it is a physical one, because, you know, my environment is a fantastic one and I'm really lucky. And, you know, and I think a lot about my friends who have lost their jobs, who have had to close their businesses, you know, or who are still essential workers across the country, and having to go out, you know, day after day after day. So, you know, relatively
and potentially
speaking,
expose themselves.
yeah, exactly. And so, you know, relatively speaking, I'm in a fantastic position, and I know that, and I keep reminding myself of that. Um, but I've also had to worry about, you know, keeping my spirits up, keeping mom's spirits up as well, and making
Yes.
sure that we're getting through this the best way that we can.
Judy, sweetie, how are you making out?
Well, as you both know, I'm very much an extrovert, extreme extrovert. I've really had to rein myself in and find some of those things that I experience from joy within my home. So I think the first thing I do each day, which I think is important for anyone watching, whether you're female or male, is start the day with prayer, which I do. And if you don't, that's okay. But at least get your feet on the ground and say, thank you for this day that I'm COVID free and my loved ones are. Secondly, I think personal hygiene is really important in this time, because getting yourself prepared in the morning, as in taking a nice hot shower, you don't have to wear makeup, but putting on something other than pajamas, because I've been in my pajamas, of course, a lot, but I think that when you get yourself cleaned up and even do your nails or trim your nails or do something nice, put a pair of earrings on, or for a guy, just a nice shirt instead of like a baggy old sweater or something, you get your mindset that everything is kind of normal. And I really think that this eating business is very challenging, because you're home more, you're idle more, of course. You're not having the chance to go out and buy. Well, I'm not running out of my house because we're not supposed to be. We're getting our groceries ordered and picked up as needed on a weekly basis. So fresh fruit and things like that are really hard to keep up. But if you can eat healthy, and I don't sleep well because my mind is constantly in a state of what's next. So I've had to play meditative music in the evening, which I do advise people to do on their app. Meditate, yoga, calming techniques before bedtime. Watch comedy as opposed to the news as much as you can before bedtime. Don't go to bed having listened to the scary projection of what could or could not be. We know what's real and we know what could happen. But if you go to bed on that thought of negativity, you're going to have trouble sleeping. My blessings are there. Like Veronique, I have my family with me. My son is a physician on the front line in Halifax, as you know. I worry about him and his girlfriend, who is a nurse in oncology, of course, but they're taking every precaution still to look after themselves, even though Nova Scotia's numbers are much higher than New Brunswick's. My other son is home with us. It's a joy. We're spending time laughing and doing quality things, and even watching comedy shows together, and just catching up on things we didn't have a chance to talk about before. And my husband, of course, is home more because his office has been shut, because he doesn't want to expose patients, nor do they want to go out. So we're having more quality time. My big thing is asking you all to please keep the elderlies in mind. And my parents are two of them who are super special, and I feel obligated to help out with. My sister lives in Spain. They haven't been out in almost 30 days.
Wow. That's right, true. I forgot about her.
That's right. She and her husband have been there. I think it's 30 days now in complete lockdown. And so I think to myself, I can get in my car and go for a drive. I can walk my dogs, you know, and they can't even do that. So on to you.
No. Is she out on her
Audrey,
balcony singing? I see videos of people in Spain and Italy singing on their out on their balconies.
They have been, and it makes me emotional, and it makes her very emotional, because she's thinking, before, when they lived in Toronto, if something came up, she could hop on a plane and get home within Toronto to Moncton, 2.5 hours or something like that. Now it's a lot further. It's still doable, but with the plane situation and the distance and all of this, it's a worry for her. And I just keep saying, we're praying for you, Jen and Matt, and they're healthy, they're strong, and they're paying attention to all of the rules. They're not doing anything to jeopardize themselves. So I think it's all going to be good.
Yeah. Here at my home, ladies, what I have to agree with you, Judy, to wake up and do something that makes you feel good, whether it's to take a shower or sit in the room where the sun is shining and have your morning coffee there, to bring about some positive thoughts and feelings. I've personally now shut I don't watch the TV 24/7. Like I was getting up and watching it at 8 in the morning and then at noon when the prime minister come on and then again before I went to bed. But now I switched it around to, watching funny videos, something that's going to make me laugh and, or, a feel good story or movie and things like that. Because, even though financially we are like managing to be able to keep our head above water, we have our family and our health and our home and things like that. The whole overwhelming thing, like I get like Veronique, where I wake up in the morning on those mornings where I just feel this huge heaviness, this huge sadness of it all. And to pull yourself out of that and have a good day, it's hard. It's not that easy. And I find I have to use all my strength and energy some days to do that and to realize that, this is not going to be forever. And it's very important for the kids that I have living here at home to see that that it's okay to be upset and not to be happy, but that, we can overcome this at the same time.
Yeah, and it's interesting for me. It hit home really early for me. I'll be honest, for a couple of reasons. So that's why, I as much as I don't want to be in the house 24/7, I don't complain about it, I guess, and I'm okay with it as much as I can be, because almost right away, Judy's sister went into lockdown. And, we're connected as a family. So I watched that unfold for her. And then, my dad, was traveling when, all the borders started closing. Dad has been in the Congo, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, for nearly 3 years now, fighting, Ebola on the front lines, which is, a virus as well. And, but what happened that probably, most people don't know, because I haven't shared it, dad was tested, and we were very concerned, and because it happened right at the beginning of all of this. And, he sent me pictures of the doctors in hazmat suits, testing him and dealing with him. And then he went into lockdown for 2 weeks. And, it was terrifying for me because, dad is a superhero, of course, in my world. And, he's off, fighting, Ebola and rebels, and has been with the UN now for a number of years. And here we are now confronted with COVID. And all of a sudden I was faced with, losing dad in so many ways, and there were so many possibilities. So,
because he does fall in the risk bracket, correct? He would fall in the age category of where it's,
yeah, exactly. And dad does, he's a senior citizen, although you'd never know it.
No.
He's off in the jungle in the bush. But he's also, compromised, and dad has had malaria since 2001. And so, he is that prime risk factor for what could happen here. And so this all hit home for me almost immediately. And so I very happily, although sometimes crankily and whinily, am staying home so that I don't risk not so much myself getting it, but transmitting it to somebody else.
Exactly.
We're going to change
really
things
good. A little. I think, our zone, New Brunswick, is doing really good compared to all across Canada. And then our zone within New Brunswick itself is doing really, really well. Now, last weekend, we celebrated Easter, which was normally a huge family gathering, almost as big as Christmas. So how did we do that, ladies? How did you manage to get through that without, potentially, because there were some people out there, unfortunately, who didn't listen to the rules, and there were fines, and the one thing I'd have to say I noticed, being here, I did a big dinner. We have, I have 3 of my children here and my husband and myself. So we are a group of 5, so we don't go over the limit. But we noticed policemen patrolling our little dead end street on Easter Sunday.
So awesome.
And the kids kept asking me why. And I said, it's because they're making sure that people aren't gathering in large gatherings because we're not supposed to be. So we had a great, we ate too much. I cooked too much. I baked too much, but it was a great day. It really was.
That's keeping it normal, Audrey. That's what I tried to do here too, was to keep it as normal as possible and put the spring in my step to bounce around the kitchen. And even though there wasn't the presentation of chocolate and all of that stuff, because I didn't go out and shop for anybody, of course, there's nothing open to shop for, nor should you be out. But I wanted to get my groceries and make a nice meal and be able to take that to my parents. And again, it's so hard for me where I see them and love them so dearly that they're only 2 minutes away. And yet I respect them enough. I'm getting emotional here. I respect them enough
We've all been there, Judy.
to wash my hands and take it to their door and refrain from hugging because I can't. And yet I want to do something nice for them. Yeah, I'm a hugger.
Exactly.
And but I still have to do the meal. And I think I've been emotional because of that and missing everybody.
Yeah, of course.
That's just it.
And you know, and we are typically, you know, Judy, we go to the same church, so we are typically very involved in what happens around Easter as well, as far as the religious ceremonies go. And and I know that you've been missing that as well as I have. And you know, and although a lot of the churches are doing, you know, online masses now,
they're doing the virtual things.
Absolutely. And they're doing TV mass as well. It's still not quite the same, but, you know, we spent a lot of time together, Mom and I, and we cooked, and, you know, we also,
we're actually going to, not to jump in, but believe it or not, it's time for us to take a short commercial break, and we're going to be back with our first guest after the break. Don't go away.
Exciting.
Keep watching more Have a Chat. And welcome back to Have a Chat. I'm Audrey Lynch with my beautiful co-stars, Veronique Arseneault and Judy Losier. And joining us now as our first guest for today, John Eisner. Hello, John.
Hello there.
Hello, John. So, yes, welcome to Have a Chat. Thank you for joining us via your office or home, unlike us. We are going to be talking to you today because you are a financial planner. So we want you first to tell us a little bit about yourself and the history of the credit counseling that you come from.
Well, my background has always been in the financial world. I worked for the Irvings many years ago. I was in the banking industry for 10 years. And 25 years ago, I started Credit Counseling Services of Atlantic Canada. It's a nonprofit organization. And the reason for me starting this organization up 25 years ago is I knew the need was great. And I had a lot of opposition way back 25 years ago when we started this. A lot of the finance companies, collection agencies didn't like what we were offering because we're offering guidance to consumers that are struggling, experiencing financial difficulty. And we were always someone they could reach out to, because there's no invested interest. We're here to hear what you're up against and what we can do to make your life a little easier.
Yes. So we were definitely bringing you on the show because of everything that's current globally across the world going on right now with COVID-19. And we are looking to get your thoughts and opinion on the overall impact that you think COVID-19 is going to have on us financially.
It's having a major impact. There's, you know, for those that are still working, they think, well, I've got my job, I'm good. I'm going to tell you, you may be faced with a layoff somewhere down the road. We don't know those things. So now is a good time to really take a proactive approach to, let's take a look at our finances. Do we have a budget? What are we doing to make sure we're watching everything we do? Unfortunately, for those that have lost a job, they're in a crisis mode right now. And we can talk about how we would tell them to prepare themselves. But also for those that are still working, the advice is almost parallel.
Interesting.
Okay. Yeah. Judy, you have a question?
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Veronique.
Or Veronique, either or.
Well, when we think about finances, and we know that our finances and our budgeting and really our income are so near and dear to our hearts, and it creates the most stress in our lives. When we're making sure or trying to make sure that we're paying, all of our bills on time and keeping the house afloat. And most of us, in all honesty, are probably living paycheck to paycheck for the most part. I think that's a little bit typical in our day and age. So what should we concentrate on right now? What are the necessities that we should be looking at to pay or to take care of, so that we can manage with the least amount of stress possible, although knowing, of course, right now we're under an incredible amount of stress?
Well, going right back to the basics, the majority of the consumers that we see coming through our doors, one of the number one reasons why they're heading into a financial difficulty or are already in one is because really it's their money management skills or budgeting. And if you really think about it, in the schools, the curricular, the university, these things aren't taught. So it's sort of, if your parents sort of did a good job, chances are you may do a good job. If mom and dad maybe didn't do such a good job, there's a good possibility you haven't done a good job. And keep in mind, there's so much credit available to you, whether it's a credit card, lines of credit, car loan. It can become overwhelming. So talking about what's the most important thing, make no bones about it. The roof over your head, food on the table, the bare necessities of life, roof, food, utilities, and then we can get into all the other things. But, if you have rent, that needs to be looked after. Otherwise, you could be looking at an eviction. In reference to your mortgage, understand what your mortgage allows you to do, especially in times like this. So many people have been so greatly affected, and they need to make a call to the financial institution and say, here's my situation. This is what I'm up against. What are my options?
So I guess my question, John, next would be, what providers should someone contact who is suddenly facing these types of hardships?
That's a great question, Judy, because in today's world, when times get tough and people are in disarray, there's a lot of people that'll set up their mom and papa shop saying, hey, listen, I can help, I can fix your problems. So to your point, the real question is, it's easy for me to say Credit Counseling Services of Atlantic Canada. We're a nonprofit organization. We're also, all our staff are accredited, they're certified. So I'm going to suggest you do some research. If you've reached out to an organization, what's your fee? How does your fee work? Check them out with the Better Business Bureau. Very important. Make sure you really know who you're dealing with, because there's so many organizations out there that are not going to really serve you well.
Given everything that's going on, your recommendation, I guess, what would your recommendation be? Would it be to reach out to those, to the bank, to your car payments and all that, and see if they can do something to help?
Absolutely. Here's what's happening. There's so much misinformation out there. People are sort of waiting to see what the government's going to do, whatever. If you have a mortgage, the easiest thing or the best thing to do is call the financial institution. If you're not experiencing any difficulty at this time, understanding what your options are if you had lost your job or whatever. If you've lost your job, it's very important you call the financial institutions to find out what, if anything, they're able to do. And I can tell you, the financial institutions are working with everyone on a one-on-one basis based on what your mortgage situation is, how you've handled it, have you lost your job? And you know what, I would tell you, most people I've talked to, it's not perfect. I think the banks somewhere down the road will come up with even a better solution, but right now they'll allow you to make the interest payments on your mortgage at this time versus the full payment. That's certainly better than nothing at this time.
I'm a small business owner at myself as well, and I was mandated to actually close my business. So I didn't lose my job per se, but you know, I still have a household to run and pay those bills. And now I also have my business side of things that is suffering as well. So what would be my best, you know, plan of action there?
Well, first of all, yeah, if you've are self-employed, the question is what debt, consumer debt, or what debt is tied to the business, and what debt are you personally responsible for? Again, the same principles. I would call the financial institutions because I'm in the same boat. You know, I've reached out to our mortgage company on our property here, and you know, I was able to get 6 months deferral on the mortgage payments. So all we're obligated at this time is interest only, which has been helpful. Second point, as I've reached out to all the people that I do business with and saying, here's my situation. I've explained to it. Here's where I'm at. This is what's going on. So they're all aware. We can't just assume they know. Some are really good to work with, and others are certainly a lot different. So it really helps you identify if you got any type of cash flow. You have to identify your cash flow and know this is the check I released this week. This is what I'm holding back. You'll sort of know. You're going to have to navigate through it. But if with your financial institutions, you need to better understand, is it a personal debt or is it tied to the business only? Because they certainly have two different consequences. Yeah, with your personal debt, obviously everything you do can affect your credit rating. But I think the financial institutions, with everything that's going on, are going to have to look at that because we're talking millions of people that have lost their jobs. So Equifax, TransUnion, this is huge. And I don't think anyone has the right answer right now. So that's why it's important to talk to your financial institutions, talk to your landlord, or and really make sure you understand where their position is. Check out to see how the government assistance programs are out there, how you can take advantage, because there is help in different formats. There's so many different ones, and they're almost daily. So you have to almost stay on it to say what applies to me, what doesn't apply, because having a better understanding what's available is going to help you make the decisions you need to make going forward.
You just talked briefly there about, you know, what's coming out through the government and everything, and to stay on top of that. Part of what we heard, one of the first things we heard actually was the deferral on filing taxes, and I think it's till the end of June-ish. Can you give us some advice on that? You know, and you know what we should be looking at for that? Is it a good idea to defer filing your taxes, or should we file them as if it's a regular year?
Well, let's be honest with each other. If we know that you owe money, I would defer it. But if that's not been your normal pattern, I would encourage you to file your taxes, especially if you get money back or break even, because depending on everyone's income brackets, your HST comes in play, your child tax credit, and maybe there's more money being made available to you. So if you don't do that, then you won't get it until a later date. And for most people that are struggling, they can use it now.
John, what about people that want to reduce their loan payments?
Let me just talk about, let's say for the average consumer, we see they have 4, 5 different creditors. They have a credit card, or actually the average consumer we're seeing carries 3 to 4. They carry some balances. They got a line of credit. The first thing I would suggest with all of that debt is call your financial institution and say, can we consolidate? And what would that look like? Or if you have a line of credit, let's say you got a line of credit for 20,000 and you owe about $5,000 or $6,000 in credit card, I would tell you, pay off your credit cards, put it on your line of credit, eliminate 3 of the credit cards and only keep 1, because really one's all you really need. And it's
Well,
easier
the
to manage
interest rate
one
on
than
a
it
credit
is.
card is so high. And the
It's
line of credit is so
19,
much lower.
absolutely. So that's one of the reasons right off the bat it makes sense. And the other thing is the line of credit in those tough months, all you're obligated to pay is interest only.
Correct.
In the
Right.
good months,
Yep.
you can pay a lot more down, but when it's tough, interest only, and that's not a bad thing under these situations right now.
That's good
And
advice.
that doesn't
Thank you
affect your
for
credit rating, right?
Absolutely not, because it's easier if we all think about it. That's just and that's unsecured debt for most people. Credit cards and lines of credit are unsecured debts. With car loan payments or whatever, a lot of times you're paying weekly or bi-weekly. And if you check with your financial institution, chances are you're able to miss a payment, because you're prepaid, or all you have to pay is interest only. Those are good options to know when you need to utilize them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, car
In
payments.
reference to your
I've been trying,
mortgage,
I'm not going to lie, I've been trying to get through to those guys for a few days now. Everybody's line is busy.
unfortunately, Audrey, you're absolutely right. There's so many. Well, if you just take the magnitude of people that have been affected, but you know what? If it means you got to stay on that phone for 3 hours, 4 hours, do it. Or if you can access it online, at least if you got an online access, you can give them the information. Take a picture with your camera that what you sent them, not unless you get a confirmation, and at least you've done it. But I'd like talking to people. I'd like to know what you can and can't do versus waiting. And your wait could be, who knows, a week or 2. Well, the stress that people are carrying, that doesn't make sense right now. They just actually need to know.
To me, the bills that come first for us here in our home is keeping the roof over our head and food in the fridge and the heat on, the heat and lights. Like to me, those are, priority. And then everything else,
they're your necessities. And right now, that's what a lot of people are doing. They're bunkering down because no one really knows how this is all going to turn out. So you're right. Roof over your head, heat, lights, food on the table, the bare necessities. Now, other things that consumers can do. If you got 2 vehicles right now, and right now we're all pretty well restricted to our homes, call your insurance company. Do you need insurance on both cars right now? I've actually done it. And you know what? $50, $60 a month is better in my pocket than the insurance company with my car just sitting there. So that's just a no-brainer. This is the time you've got to look at every line item in your household. What can we do to make adjustments? So starting from the mortgage.
So that's why it's a good idea to write down the budget and the list of things. We're actually going to go to a commercial break, John. We don't want you to go anywhere. We have quite a few more questions to ask you. So don't you move. And to our viewers, don't you go away. We'll be back with more Have a Chat after the break. And we're back with more Have a Chat. We were chatting with our guest, John Eisner, who's a financial planner. And John's been giving us a lot of information on what he believes the impact from this COVID-19 is having on us personally, business-wise, financially across the board. Again, John, thank you for joining us today.
Great
Thank
advice you're
you.
giving.
It's a pleasure. Well, it's important
So you
right
were
now
chatting.
for those out there.
It is. It's scary times. It's bad enough that we mentally and health wise that we're concerned about what's happening globally. But finances is another huge stressful part of all of this, and there isn't one single person that this does not affect on some level.
That is very true. Everyone through what is currently going on has been affected, whether you've lost your job. The stock market has certainly taken a major toll on a lot of people. I don't know of anyone that has not been affected to date.
No, it's true.
Wow,
Yeah.
exactly. So yes, you mentioned the stock market. So for those of us who do happen to have a few dollars set aside or have made some investments, I'm not going to lie. I did go online to take a little peek to see what happened. I won't be doing that again until things settle. But it is a scary thought for those of us who have set some money aside and have investments for retirement or the future, and whether or not at our age there's time to regain some of that back, or like I don't even know where to begin with what you could give us for some advice to get through it.
The best advice I would give you is if you're looking at it daily, stop doing that. We've already taken the hit. If you got an advisor, I think you should talk to your advisor on a monthly basis. Just get a feel and understanding, because for most consumers, they really don't have a good understanding. So count on the experts that do. Really reach out to them. And now's not a time to sell. I don't believe that, and I think everyone would tell you, if you got some cash, they'll also tell you when it's a good time to jump in and buy again. But everyone's situation is different, so I'm going to encourage you to talk to your advisor. Now, if you deal with the financial institutions, again, you need to talk to them, and it doesn't hurt to get a second opinion.
No, exactly. That's just it.
I agree.
Because most people are vulnerable if you don't have a good understanding. So you're putting all your faith into one person, and look, no one has all the right answers, nobody. But I would say you bounce it off your advisor, and then if you have someone else you know in the industry, just talk to them about that.
Exactly.
Well, actually, interestingly enough, like when this all first happened 5 weeks ago, or not first happened, but when we really took the major hit about 5 weeks ago, I do have some investments. They're very small, and they were so reduced when we first went into self-isolation and social distancing. But I have started to see kind of a little bit of a rebound. It's not huge, but they are starting to creep back up again, which is encouraging. So I think unfortunately right now patience is the key.
Yeah,
you're absolute, and again, that's why I say this is not the time to sell. For most people, you're right. 5-6 weeks ago, when the doom and gloom hit us, it affected the market, and it hit us hard. Everybody that was in the market got part of the pain. And I'm going to just say, don't look at it every day. I was doing that in week 5 weeks ago. I was driving myself crazy, and I said, okay, stop. Just like the news. I stopped listening to the news on a regular basis. I do it once a day. I get my update. I do it in the evening, because in the evening, it's going to used to be the same news first thing in the morning. So I got a 24-hour hit on the news at one shot. In reference to your investments, look, it could be up today and you're high, you're low tomorrow when it's falling off the grid.
Well, that's just
advisor
it.
Once a month.
Everything's low, so you should buy, they say.
Yep. And you know what?
John,
there's no right or wrong answer. Sorry, just make sure you're in contact with your advisor or your financial institution, and don't be afraid to ask other people for a second opinion.
Judy?
John, I just wanted to ask John, some people we know just certain things that come to mind are not good at paying their bills on time. What are some of the other examples of debt extremities, like having problems, like really severe problems with their debt? Some warning signs. Warning
Well,
signs. I guess I'm asking you.
well, the first one, and you've all heard this term, robbing Peter to pay Paul. If I'm using one credit card to pay another, if I'm using my line of credit to make my minimum payment on my credit card, if I miss my
Mm-hmm.
due date, even if I miss my due date by a day or two, those things are affecting your overall credit score. So it's
Mhm.
important, like to go right back to when we talked about earlier, consolidating. Listen, if you're
Mhm.
working and you've got things in order, go to the bank, get it all under one umbrella. It's easier to manage one than it is three or four different items. The most important advice I can give consumers is this. If you're in a relationship, a partner, or whatever the case may be, make sure you're talking to each other. Make sure you're on the same page, because
Yeah.
I could be going one way, my wife could be going another. And that could be dangerous if we're not going in the same direction. Because
A
in our
lot of people
business,
are
the
afraid.
leading
Yeah.
cost, oh, sorry.
No, a lot of people are just afraid to answer their phones, for example, to see who is at the other end. They don't want to take any calls from anybody, and that can be, you're waiting on news, but they won't. The fear is there too to pick up the phone.
Well, you know something, I would encourage you always to pick up the phone. Now,
Mhm.
depending on who's on the other end, and if they're being disrespectful or intimidating or harassing,
Mm-hmm.
then
Yes.
that's a different game. That's when you pick up the phone and call our organization, and we'll tell you what they can and can't do. I mean, that's why a lot of the, high interest rates, payday loans, finance companies, collection agencies, part of the reason they'll say, oh, don't go to credit counseling, don't talk to them. They don't want you to know what we're going to tell you. We're going to tell you what they can
Yeah.
and can't do. We're not telling
Yes.
people not how to pay their bills. We're telling them most people want to pay their bills. That's a proven fact.
Right.
But when you're in a
Mm-hmm.
crisis, the last thing you need is someone intimidating you, threaten you, and what happens is we see a lot of people taking their mortgage money or the rent money to pay the collection agency. No, we're not going to tell you
No.
to do that, because
No.
at the end of the day, your mortgage is going right back to what we've been saying all throughout this show. Roof over here, that's a necessity. You don't pay your mortgage, you
Mm-hmm.
could end up losing it. You don't pay your rent, you could get evicted. On a credit
Yeah.
card, when you're trying to explain your situation, and don't forget, the people sometimes, if they're working with a collection agency, they really don't care about your problem. They don't make their money unless they're collecting, and they get commission on based on the work they're doing. If anyone is really good at what they're doing, they will listen, hear what the situation is, and a good collection agency or whatever, because they can't fix, they're only worried about one issue. The good ones would say, look, you need to reach out to credit counseling. And I'll tell you why. Because we look at all the debt. We want to make sure your mortgage
Mm-hmm.
is in order, your utilities are up to date, the necessities first. Then we'll tell you that we'll put a plan together if there's a plan to be worked out, how you go about doing that. And sometimes we have to tell people, hey, look, you're too deep in. You need to look
Mm-hmm.
at another option, whether it's bankruptcy or consumer. Like, we're going to look at all your options. And the best part about what we do, you're going to decide what option works best for you and your family.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Now, would you say that, John, one of the first things that everybody could benefit right here, right now, if you haven't done it already, is to go ahead, and you had mentioned this earlier, and put it to paper and write down a budget, write down what your bills are, and actually be able to see them in front of you.
And you're absolutely right. Now, here's what I want to share with you. The average consumer that we see coming through the door, it's always the
Mm-hmm.
female that takes that responsibility on.
Yeah.
When it comes to putting a budget and a plan together, the other member of the household has to be part of the plan. Because if you're
Yep.
trying to make
Correct.
everything work and there's not enough money to make it work, well, they don't understand why. Well, why are we behind on the hydro? Why are we behind? Well, if
right.
everyone sits down and reviews the plan, everyone will
Hmm.
better understand, because there's one thing I can tell you: numbers won't lie to you.
No.
True enough.
And children
Yeah.
children
Let me
should
get,
be learning too. Like
oh,
children should be
listen,
learning at a young age
absolutely.
how to budget and how to be in on the family conveniences for saving sakes. Yes.
Let me give you a good piece of advice, Judy. That's absolutely bang on. Here's what young children see in this world, not when we were younger, in today's world. Well, when you go to the bank machine, stick in the card, and it spits money out,
Yeah. Yep.
right?
Hmm.
That's what the kids see. That's a
Exactly.
Correct.
visual.
Yeah.
When you
That's
when you
right.
Yep.
use the credit, when you swipe the credit card, they see it gets you anything you want. What
Right.
they don't understand
To
is,
them,
where's
it's
that money
limitless
coming
to
from?
them.
How, right, and how does that work? Because for most people, if little Johnny says, "Mommy, mommy, mommy, can I have a couple dollars?" and you say no,
Hmm.
most kids don't understand no. So it starts with helping young people understand, and what's the right
Yes.
time? Well, when they're 5 and 6, why not get them on an allowance? And people say, an
Right.
allowance?
Yeah.
Well, we're all on an allowance. If you really get in it, we get so much money, and we've got to learn how to make that money work. And we've got so many different programs that are beneficial. I've got people saying, thank you so much. This was so
Mm.
simple. And I'll tell you this: when I went to the States before I started this business, I went into the States and did my training. And I thought, only in the USA. I thought I'd get counsel down there. I thought these people were out in left field. But
Mm.
being a former banker, I thought I knew it all. And in my training, they taught me the bare basics, the simple stuff that no one's ever
Hmm.
taught me. I'm so much better, and I've been a great money. I don't say a financial planner. I call myself a financial coach.
Awesome.
Oh,
Whether you got
nice.
money, whether you got
Yeah.
money, or whether you don't have money,
Yeah. How to
No,
because
manage
that's
it.
just
you're
it.
not going to.
I find my kids learned a lot from because they did, like you said, this day and age, they don't actually see it. They don't have it in their hand. It's all virtual because of the swipe of the card. So when my older kids got jobs and had the debit card, they very quickly learned that it's
Mm.
not reality. So I actually physically took it to the level where I physically said, here, you keep your tips. You actually have the cash. They had the money in the wallet. I will keep your paychecks, and that will be the savings. And they were less likely to spend the physical money that they could see disappearing in their
That's right.
wallet,
Yep.
right?
That's
They
right.
had a
Yeah.
better concept of it, and realizing that just the swipe, oh, I don't know what the number is right now. And I feel
Mm.
like that is so lacking in teaching our children,
Yes.
how to, it's not the
Yeah.
value of a dollar, but it's how to manage your money
Hmm.
as well.
Exactly. At a
The
young
other,
age. Hmm.
yeah. The other thing, Audrey, let them learn from mistakes. That's how we've all learned. Um, Young
Yeah.
people need to
Some of them are
know.
hard.
I remember when my oldest son was 13. I had the three boys all on a budget, or on an allowance, I should say. And I tracked it for 3 months. And this is what you should do: is
Hmm.
track every time they got their allowance, and how did they spend it, and what did they save, and whatever. Because at the end of 3 months, my oldest son says, I don't understand, Dad, why Elliot and David have more money and I've got none. Well, I said, well, let's go back and review what you did. Well, we used to go to hockey games, and he was always wanting to go, because I used to say, well, we'll go to the game. It'll cost you $2 and this, and $2 for this. Like, instead of Dad always paying, which a lot of us do, I help them
Yeah.
understand, okay, if you want to do it, you put a little into it. And after,
Yeah.
when they realize they got to contribute to what it is you're going to do, maybe that's not as important.
That's right. They tend
Like
to
my
have
Exactly.
a
oldest son
change of
start
heart of whether or
realizing
not they want that.
they need to establish what's important to them. But at the end of the day, I remember when he had about $1,000. I'll tell you the story. When he had almost $1,000 saved up when he got older, and then he wanted to buy a little mini goat bike or whatever. Someone had a used one. And he says, so what do you think? And I said, well, let me tell you this. I want you to think about it for 24 hours. And you realize if you take that $1,000, you've got no money. You're broke. But I said, if you choose that's what you want to do, fine. And versus me saying, no, you can't do it, whatever. That 24 hours, he thought about it because he realized by taking that money, he's going to be back to zero. Because the hardest $100 to save for all of us was the very first $100. Once you learn to get to the 100, the next 100 got a little easier, but you have to get to the first one first. And
yes,
at the end of the day, kids have to learn to fall once in a while, learn from their mistakes. And it's better for them to learn at an earlier stage than it is at a later stage, because if you learn early, you get a better handle on it. Everyone's going to make mistakes. Look, let's not kid ourselves. We've all made them.
True. John, we want to thank you so much for joining us today. Can you give us a little information before we're done today of how we can contact you and, whether it's by phone or do you have a website? Fill us all in how we can get our hands on your expertise.
Well, I'm going to give you two key ones. The first one, I'll give you the toll-free number. It's easy, 1-888-753-2227. But the best one, because you won't forget it, is go to our website at solveyourdebts.com. It's got a nice catch, solveyourdebts, plural.com. That's the one that people resonate with very quickly. It's the toll-free number. It's sometimes hard to catch, but 888-753-2227, or visit our website at solveyourdebts.com.
Again, we want to thank you for joining us today and sharing with us all this valuable information. And we hope and pray that we will all get through this. We're all in it together, and God willing, the holes won't be that deep, that we don't all, come out a little wiser, if nothing else, after everything that we go through together. Again, John, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you to our viewers for watching today. We love and miss you. Stay home, stay safe, and take care.